In this video, you will learn to compare a text to an audio recording of the same text. But before we get started, let's review a few key vocabulary terms. What is media? Media is plural for medium. And medium is a main mean of mass communication, like a newspaper, radio, or television. Text, like a book or a written article. Audio, like a sound recording or a song. And video, like a movie or a TV show, are all different forms of media. So let's practice comparing two different kinds of media. We will compare a text to an audio version of the same text. We'll be using Lou Gehrig's Farewell to Baseball address. So, who is Lou Gehrig? Lou Gehrig is a famous American baseball player from the early 1900s. At the height of his career, he was diagnosed with a rare and fatal disease, now known as Lou Gehrig's disease. We'll be reading an excerpt from the speech that he delivered when he resigned from professional baseball. Here's what we'll do. First, we'll read and analyze the text. Then we'll listen to the audio recording. Then we'll identify how the audio recording is different from the original text. And finally, we'll compare and contrast the two using a Venn diagram. Let's read together. So I close in saying that I may have had a tough break, but I have an awful lot to live for. What do you notice about this text? And what do you know about Lou Gehrig? I see I may, and then there's a but. Now that means that he's qualifying something that he's saying. He's saying even though this might be the case, something else. I notice that he's saying he has a lot to live for. So even though something bad happened to him, he's sort of looking at the silver lining. He's looking at the positive side. Okay, so here's what I know about the text. I know that his word choice is really positive and really optimistic. We also know that this is his closing, and so his main message is that, yeah, he is unlucky, but he has a lot to live for. Okay, now let's listen to Lou Gehrig deliver this same excerpt of his speech.
I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
So while I was listening to this speech, I actually decided to take some notes. I looked at the original written speech, and then I wrote out some notes about the live speech and some of the differences. So now let's look at these notes as we listen to the audio recording again.
I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
Whoa, okay, so these are actually pretty different. Let's take a look at what Lou Gehrig actually said. Okay, so this I consider myself part wasn't even in the original speech that was written. That's one thing you can do when you're giving a live speech. You can improvise. Oftentimes, people improvise when they're overcome with emotion. So it looks here like Lou Gehrig improvised. He added a sentence with a couple of pauses. He wants to emphasize that he's been very fortunate. He considers himself the luckiest man, not even just a lucky man, the luckiest man. And using these pauses around the words, the luckiest man, really make us have to stop and think and hear him when he says he is the luckiest man. The pauses that he uses punctuate what he's saying. Okay, and then in this sentence, he adds an I might have. Now, he's using a contraction, which to me is a little bit less formal and a little bit more personal. He also takes a big, long pause after I might have, which means he's probably not happy about this fact, but he's still going to look on the positive side. I can also ask myself, where is this speech being delivered? With clues like,
I consider myself,
and I'm guessing that he's delivering this in front of his loving fans. Okay, so let's recap what we've observed about this audio clip. First of all, we know that Lou Gehrig improvised. He also punctuated his speech with pauses that gave a lot of emotion and conviction to what he was saying. We also thought about the context, where it was being delivered and who he delivered it to. And then we looked at the main message. He's extremely lucky, even though he was met with some bad luck. So now let's compare the text and the audio version of the text using a Venn diagram. We can notice some key differences, like in the text, it was punctuated with periods and commas, but in the audio version, it was punctuated with pauses that show emotion. By comparing these two, we can also tell that Lou Gehrig improvised in the audio recording. This is probably because he was overcome with emotion, perhaps because he was delivering this speech to his fans, which we can tell from the clapping in the background. But if we look at the similarities, we can also notice that these two pieces are actually very similar. The word choice in both is very optimistic, and at the end, Lou Gehrig says he has a lot to live for. I do want to point out though that I actually think the main message in both the text and the audio version are actually a little bit different. When I read the text, I heard he may be unlucky, but he has a lot to live for. In the audio recording though, in the improvisation part, he really highlighted how lucky he was. So I think the main message of the audio version is that he was extremely lucky, even though he was met with some bad luck. So let's recap. Here's what we did. We read and analyzed the text. Then we listened to the audio recording, and we identified how the audio recording was different from the original text. Finally, we compared and contrasted the two using a Venn diagram. Now you've learned to compare a text to an audio recording of the same text.